Man, we are zooming along. We got about hour in and video after video after video. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. It's working out pretty well. What we got here?
For me, will ya?
Yeah,
Okay, today's video is kind
I
of
knew I was gonna do that. I exactly knew I was. Oh, how old is this video? 4 days. I haven't seen it. Let's do something a little different here. We've been watching a lot of humor. This here is Bellular News. I've seen his videos before. He does really good gaming journalism. This here is Expedition 33 is out of date. You know, a lot of the big video game studios thought that these turn-based JR RPGs are they're not going to sell or they're not money makers. But the thing is they just can't maximize um, the microtransactions the way they want in a lot of these games. I don't know. I mean, they could, but it it definitely says something that a small team putting love into a project it easily shows to the consumer, to the player. Um, it's more fun. There's life to it versus a game that's made by 100 people, even though they have almost unlimited resources. Um, Sometimes you have too many cooks in the kitchen. Sometimes you have so much voices that you can't really get a thought out. Um, Too many opinions, too many directions, too much cutting. You know, the left hand's not talking to the right hand, and by the end of it everyone wants to play it safe too. Because there's all this money riding on it. Um, it's a shame that these big studios really been fumbling the ball with video games. And it's also something to note, like with like a game like Oblivion, because I've been playing a lot of Oblivion Remastered. It's a fun game, but it's an old game that's just been recycled, and that says something. Like it's getting really hard for these companies to make new stuff. And the indie games, they're fun. Out there, you can have lots of fun playing indie games. I think that's why PC games and PC gaming has been exploding. Um, the past decade, you're starting to find kids wanting PCs over consoles. And I mean, consoles still have their place. They're easily accessible for people to play games. But when you have a PC, you have so much more freedom and access, and it's just better for you, for as a consumer. And anyways, I started yapping a little bit. Let's check out what we have to see about it. Expedition 33. Haven't played it. Definitely considering it. Looks amazingly fun.
wild, and I'll start by sharing some stats. And keep in mind, this is all from a core team of just 30 people. So, 1 million sales in 3 days, and that's not even counting Game Pass, so
Good
that'll
job.
be a load
It
more
hit 2
players.
million
A
now, I think.
97% recommendation on OpenCritic, and
Maybe 3 now.
92% on Steam as of the first 17,000 reviews. There have been thousands more, and obviously a lot of copies sold on PlayStation. Basically, by any numbers, Clara Obscura Expedition 33 is one of the best games this year. But there's a thing, this is not like a lot of the other games. It's actually a tiny core team, a core team of just 30. This
Yeah,
is their
30.
debut title, and it's, well, a turn-based RPG. This is in a genre that
You
the
know,
big players so
I
far
believe
have
a lot of
dismissed,
small
and
studios
at least
can
from
make
like an
good games.
audience's perspective, it completely came out of nowhere. So, that's the overall story of Expedition 33 in the market, though parts of it aren't always accurate. Now, I'm not here to shit in the team, very much the opposite. To oversimplistically glaze them actually undermines how much of an achievement this game actually is.
Looking at it now, and I think I can show it to you here. It says Expedition 33 just recently, since momentum has increased. Um, since then, this momentum has continued, with the game now surpassing 2 million copies sold. I lost my place. How do I do that? Did I just get rid of my? Wait a minute. Oh, it's right here.
How sensible, how smart this team have been, and we'll also be able to cover today where the game came from and who funded it. First up, if you're not part of the million sales, Expedition
Look at
33
that.
is
That
a
looks pretty
turn-based
cool.
RPG with reactive combat quick-time events
That's
set in
a
a
cool
painterly
setting.
world where anyone past the age of 33 is killed by a wrathful god. You and your party set out to do basically the JRPG thing, you know, you save yourselves, save the world. You may even kill God at the end, but I haven't actually
Look at
got
the
there
fighting.
yet, so we'll see. Now, while just
Like, I gotta say, I don't play a lot of JRPG, and I don't play a lot of turn-based games, but like, I did enjoy Pokemon as a kid growing up, and I did enjoy, there was a couple turn-based fighting games on the Game Boy. I can't remember what it was, but there was a Dragon Ball Z game on Game Boy Advance or Color that I absolutely enjoyed. And there's a couple other games I'm trying to think, and of course, they're escaping me. I never played a lot of Final Fantasy, and I feel like I've missed out on a lot on the earlier Final Fantasy games. I might have to try them out. But this just looks for turn based, or I don't even know if I would. It is turn based, but like there's a lot of interaction going on here.
about everything in this game is being praised, what's really standing out is the
Let's
prologue.
see.
The prologue is utterly incredible. Beyond that, though,
Really?
it's
Good
exceedingly
start.
French, and just as the French comics and
Wow, look at
animation
that.
scene owes a big debt to Japan, so does this game. And that's not just me editorializing, that is overtly a parallel drawn by the creative director who gave the producer copies of FF10 and Persona 5. But to my
Look at that. Persona 5 and Final Fantasy. That's what I was thinking of, Persona. It's funny because I've never played these games, and this is what makes me think of them. I can see the correlation and the inspiration, where it's coming from, the genre. I gotta say, the game looks fresh. It just looks interesting. I want to know more about it. When I see scenes, I only want to see more.
horror, not a copy of the best JRPG of all time, which obviously is The Lord of the Rings, The Third Age. Anyway,
Wow, I gotta
here's
check
what's wild
that
about
out.
this game. It's not AAA, even though it's besting them, even though it looks like one.
Besting
In
them.
a way, the sheer excitement around Expedition 33 almost underplays the many
Awesome
reasons
that a team of
why
30
this
can
game
do
is
it.
able to punch way above its weight class. One of the biggest talking points about Expedition 33 is the team itself, that somehow only 30 developers made this thing, that they cast off the shackles of Ubisoft and made a linear game that was the opposite of an Ubisoft game. And that, thankfully, is not
Good
wrong,
job.
but it's also not the full story. So here goes. Sandfall Interactive are a new studio established in 2020. Expedition 33 was in development since 2019. That's back when the creative
Look at
director,
that.
Guillaume,
Dude,
I think is
that's a
how you say
whale
his
up
name,
there.
was noodling around in Unreal Engine for the
Noodling
first
around.
time. And
I'm gonna start using that as a verb. Oh, I was just noodling around. Oh, my wife is gonna love it.
it sure seems Unreal lit a fire under him. So he, and a bit under half of their team, hail from Ubisoft. The rest are from studios like Cyanide or other indie groups. There are plenty of veterans, but here's the wild thing. For the majority of that team, Expedition 33 is their first industry credit. And that is
Of
especially the
course.
case in level, VFX,
Which is their
and
first
technical
time
art.
in the industry
Just kind
making
of
a
wild,
big
honestly. I'd say
splash.
that is sort
I
of
love
insane.
it.
And in a way, it makes me sad. It suggests that we should have had far more games like this. You see, the 2020s saw a wave of senior staff, right, at AAA companies, leave those companies to start their own team. It was a real hot funding environment. And look, the ex-Blizzard people, the ex-BioWare people, you've seen all of that stuff.
It takes
But as
time
we've
to
covered
build the
here,
game.
that has tended not to end well.
But,
and very often,
know,
not because the game comes out and it's bad, but because
Where are the
the
good
financial
games?
landscape changed. Which is basically to say there were loads of other teams, kind of like this one, but the funding environment just ended up killing them. Yet, we just look at Sandfall and we look at this game. This game is the single best argument for this model of development yet.
Look at
But
that.
that's all surface level. Let's go a little bit deeper to see how the game was actually made. To start, Sandfall have a team of 30. Now, 30 is really just not enough to make a game like this.
It reminds
just
me
in
of Hello
terms of the
Games
pure
when
amount
they
of
made
labor.
No Man's
Now, one
Sky.
way around this problem is to scale
Although
up the
No
head
Man's
count
Sky
of the
had
team,
an
but doing
awful
so is extremely
launch
hard.
where Expedition
And that
33
core
was
problem
like,
has led to
boom, this is an amazing
fun times in
game.
the industry.
Everyone
so back
buy
in the
it.
day, companies would swell up their headcount to produce a game, and then they would do mass layoffs. That obviously sucked. These companies would end up losing a lot of institutional knowledge. So, in response, many companies then became multi project studios. Now, that is hard. The point, though, is when
Yes. I think that's the other thing that I'm glad he's making a point of is like when you have a studio doing more than one project, it's very hard. I would say you should be starting projects in any business or industry when another project is near the end or final finishing touches. Because if you're trying to juggle two things and you're splitting your resources and time and your people and your hands, it's gonna get complicated. And someone's got to be able to do the quality check. And how well is quality check going to be when basically, your attention's diverted in two different things or multiple things? Because there are some people out there who think they can do three, four, five things at once. Sometimes you can get away with it too, but
whenever one project has its big production bulk, another is in pre production. Then, whenever the big production of one is over, those staff can move to the game that's just finished its pre production. And then, ideally, you don't have to fire a load of people and lose all your
yeah,
institutional
that's the
knowledge.
sad thing
The
too
thing
is
is, though,
when you're
game development
overstaffed, you
is,
have to let people
kind
go
of
when you don't.
hard, and lining up those schedules is, yeah,
You don't make
is a
ends
challenge.
meet.
This has led to a lot of issues in the industry. And to top it all off, those companies end up so large that it's just a level of scale that erodes focus. Focus is king. Sandfall went with a different option then. They went with outsourcing. And as an example, we see that clearly in this 8-person animation team.
I can see that becoming more of a common thing too, like outsourcing your resources, outsourcing some of the projects. I'm actually surprised you might not. I don't really know much about like making games, but I would be confident this should be more utilized more
That they
until it
hired,
gets
as
tariffed
well as
away.
porting, quality assurance, music, and the publishing arm of this game. And the publishing I'll come back to. There's actually more to that story. The focus that they gain from being a team of just 30, well, pays off big time. Now, to put all this together, you then, of course, have the engine, which is Unreal 5. That makes this game look like a AAA game, but it's staff who know how to use that engine that make it feel like a AAA game. And so very often that's the difference. And all that while doing gameplay in a genre that AAA, at least by the conventions of today, would simply not make.
Hey.
Oh, we got an ad. That's okay. Look at that. Post Malone and Shane. Post and Shane are pretty cool guys, man. You just can't drink the beer during the commercial, duh. Dude, duh.
Battling, mini
Duh,
games, and
dude.
an overworld map that players can navigate. It is all classic JRPG stuff, so the Final Fantasy inspirations might be a source of that feeling.
Ooh,
But
look
you
at
think
that.
about Final Fantasy, and you
That's
think about
it looks
FF16.
like Final Fantasy with
FF16
all
and
the
the more
sparks.
recent games have been moving towards
Look
action
at the
gameplay,
wings.
and that has soured a lot of people. And that's because, right? It's always been framed as a common wisdom that turn based games do not sell as well and are not as popular as games that are not turn based. What we see here is
See, I don't mind turn-based games. I think turn-based games or even like Dungeons and Dragon type games, there's a market for it. It has to just be done right, and you have to know your audience. Stop trying to make it a generally accessible for everybody thing when you know like you're gonna have a specialized audience for certain games. And maybe you have to have a little bit of faith going into that type of industry, but you got to do a lot of research. And I feel like some people be like, "Oh, but we want to make something that's a cookie cutter, that's easily accessible or easy access for the new consumer because you want new consumers coming into that world." Well, you can't open the doors to, to nothing. You got to have something substantially good. I mean, you have to have quality.
while ignoring those beliefs and making the game that they wanted, inspired by the games that inspired them, say
I do
FFX.
like the
And
number
that is some damn laudable
showing
shit.
numbers and
They're not
damage is
chasing
just
industry trends here.
nerd
But
stats. Love
actually,
it.
in a way, you could say that they are.
Makes
I
my
don't mean
brain
this in a
happy.
bad way, it's more to expose a strange thing that's happened. The industry critics and audiences seem to actually love turn based RPGs. So, look.
I've been wanting to try Persona 5. I've heard so many good things about Persona. It's been out forever. and I just hear it's fun. I also hear it's so big. Like I don't know if I'll ever finish.
Looking at OpenCritic, of the last 10 years, only two have not had at least one turn based RPG in the top 20 rated games. So these are big. People do love them. And that's not even counting well selling turn based
When
games like
they're done
Octopath,
right.
Wasteland, or Like a Dragon. So the AAA industry is capable of making turn based RPGs, let alone indies. But maybe what people were missing was a classic Japanese RPG, right? With action based combat, mini games, party dynamics, the things that we're seeing here. Plus, of course, some of the fresh ideas of indie
I
games.
mean,
And
come
that's
on.
why, say,
We
Sea of
love these
Stars
type
did
of
so
games.
well in 2023. I mean, it's basically, and yes, this is reductive, Expedition 33, but with top down pixel art instead of 3D graphics.
Some of these games, like these goofier, or like these mini games, like these. It, I had memories as a child being, and I'm talking as a millennial. Like the arcade had a lot of out there games. You're talking like The Simpsons, street fighting, and then you would even have like Jurassic Park or the zombies, the House of Carnival. Like, not only are you shooting something and there's like high intense action, but you'll often get like really exaggerated scenes. And I feel like these type of games, like the Yakuza games, like Pirate Yakuza, really understands that essence of just being comically out there. Sometimes that unexpectedness, that shock appeal is just part of the fun. It really is. I think Grand Theft Auto 2 captures that really well. I haven't seen the new trailer yet. We're gonna have to probably watch that next now that it's on my mind.
So, maybe it's not just about the genre making the game a success, it's about the AAA feel of that
Wow,
genre
that was
being
interesting.
a surprise. I think that's actually the big thing here. The fact that this game looks and feels AAA in a
It
way
is
that
a
something like
beautiful
Sea of
game.
Stars or even Metaphor Refantasio, well, doesn't, right? And as much as I love the stylization of Metaphor or Persona, it is not photoreal, absolutely effect to the tits.
I haven't seen a lot of content. I've seen some content with Expedition 33, but everything I see, it just looks
Square
beautiful.
Enix style JRPG stuff. And you know what? That's what this game is able to hit. And I think that is what makes it seem so incredibly fresh. And a lot of that is because they've clearly made it smart. And, well, UE5 does actually give developers a hell of a lot of things out of the.
Ah, the red pill. Homie's got a piece of candy. He's like, want a piece of candy? Would you like a piece of candy? The red pill or the blue pill. Either way, there's chloroform coming.
Out of the box. Games are currently in the middle of a crisis of marketing, so you'd be forgiven for not knowing about Expedition 33, but it would be a little unfair to say that this game came out of nowhere. We had appearances at Xbox's big showcases, full features in PC Gamer and Edge, and so much hype it got a Game Pass deal. And even before this had a release, Variety was confirming that it already had a film deal. So if it came out of nowhere from a tiny bunch of indies, how does that have a film deal?
Variety has learned exclusively that game developer Sandfall Interactive is teaming with Story Kitchen to develop a film version. Now that is something, man. I'm telling you, like when your game done so successful, you get to make a movie, and you're an indie developer, self-published. Good job, guys. Good job.
Well, we can talk about that. So within the industry, this game has been known as one pushed for success. And that feels counter to the idea, or some of them, that we've been talking about lately. I mean, last week, we did a video talking about, narrative games being cancelled because publishers are suggesting they're too risky. Expedition 33 certainly runs counter to that. But here's the thing, here's the difference. This game's publisher is
Man, I've seen that fight so much, but it looks. What is that? Goblu? Goblu?
actually a bunch of indie developers. They're called Kepler Interactive. Now, they launched in 21. They've been making pretty big waves, I'd say, in the indie and AA space. The TLDR, right, is a collective of indie devs who have pooled talents and resources to support each other in publishing their games and other games. Games like, say, Pacific Drive, Sifu, Scorn, Teacher as well. So fairly big successes. Now, that
Haven't
doesn't
heard these
mean that,
games.
everything they touch is gold. Ultros and Bionic Bay have not done as well, so you may not know about those. But regardless, these
That
are
looks
games
fun.
that are made on their developers' terms because their publisher
What are
actually
these
knows what it's
games?
like to make those games. And to top it all off, they have connections. Connections that get these games the best shot possible. Like we've seen with the movie thing, like we've seen with
Wow.
Xbox, and all of the featuring this game's got. So you can see how this all basically has came
I'm gonna have
together.
to look up
Sandfall can
Sandfall
work at their own
games.
pace because of a healthy publishing arrangement.
Look at that model. I'm telling you, like that looks like just it's art. It's really done well. The costume, the shoulder padding, armor, the hair, all of it looks just polished.
They can work in delivering the genre experience that they want with AAA class tools that are, I guess, more democratized, more powerful than ever. They then have the connections to proper hardcore outsourced talent, like those, say, 8 gameplay animators, and that means that they can put together something with very clear scope at an astounding level of quality, quite seemingly with a hell of a
Perfect.
lot more
Wow,
efficiency
look at
than
that.
a massive, traditional, bloated
Got a
AAA
gun.
team. If there's one thing you take away, it should be this. Expedition 33 is
That was
not
some nice
successful for
swordplay
any
there.
one reason. It's not popular just because it's made by a small team. It's not good just because it's a throwback RPG. To say that actually does a disservice to the incredibly polished, well-executed game that this team has
Dodge,
produced. They spent
dodge.
6 years working on an idea that came from
6
artistic
years to make the
inspirations.
game.
They took their favorite games and then synthesized them into something that they are excited to play, that's new, that's their vision. They
Product
partnered
of
with a
love.
publisher who respected them enough to help
Look at
them
those
make this game
jumps.
the way that they wanted. When you put all of those things
Flashes.
together, then you get a game like this. And while the average dev or indie can certainly not count on those connections and that backing, I think there are massive, massive lessons to be learned here. And it reminds me of a comparison, one between Assassin's Creed Shadows and
Oh,
Ghost
look
of
at that.
Tsushima. And yes, it was a dramatic time, and I think Shadows has critically
Ghost is something I'm going to be
overperformed what
playing
many
soon.
people would have expected. But what I found interesting was just comparing the team sizes between them. And it very much does seem to be smaller teams, better conditions, more tight scope. That's thumbs up. That's good.
Yes.
So many of the problems we've had these days with slop and just all the bad stuff, it just seems that it's these massively expensive, huge amounts of money, huge expectations, and unrealistic goals. And of course, all, to the whim of a quarterly earnings report, which we also
Not wrong.
covered in our last video.
Not
So you know
wrong.
what?
They're making
I'll leave it at
games
that.
for the
If you want to know
stockholders,
why
not for the
EA just
gamers.
made massive cuts that will absolutely hurt
So,
the
good
EA
job,
games that we
Sandfall.
actually do care
Good
about,
job with Expedition
watch this
33.
video next.
Let's see more. And that is, I think I'm saying it right, Bellular Talks, Bellular News. Either way, make sure you are subscribed to his channel and to mine.